I know that it might not seem like we're the natural bedfellows of things that you're going through, but South Africa is traditionally a very deeply Christian country. It's also a deeply conservative country, but we have had a socialist government in place that's heavily influenced by the communists since 1994, when the first elections occurred in South Africa. And with the reforms that's come through, we've seen a lot of the, should we say, left-wing type agendas that are slowly making their way through the United States, influencing our country. We've seen things like critical race theory, critical gender theory, all the critical theories really kind of making their way into South Africa and affecting some of our policies. We've even seen the introduction of social media censoring things like the hate speech bills and a number of other things that we can see, and we can kind of trace their origin, a lot of it, through to, well, your country. So it's great to speak to somebody like you. I know you talk about a lot of this stuff quite a lot and you push against it. So I think I'd love to actually start the first question and just say, from our point of view, we wanted to ask, with the retreat of Christian values in the West and the rise of woke kind of values that we're seeing everywhere, what do you think this means for our civilizations and where we're going?
Well, I think it depends on how Christians decide to respond to it. Are we going to constantly fight a rearguard action where we're just trying to mitigate losses? Are we trying to manage the retreat? Or are we preparing for a counterattack? Do we assume that we're in a battle that can't be won? Or do we assume that we're in a battle that will eventually be won? And so we can be faithful either way, but what you think the possible outcomes are affects very profoundly how you engage. Right? If you think the world is God's Vietnam and we're just managing the helicopter escape out of Saigon, and that's what we're doing, then what you're trying to do is get a few people that you love onto the helicopter. But if this is a battle for the future of the world, which is possible for the Christian worldview to win, then we ought to be prepared for that.
So, Pastor, I think that's a good response. And a lot of people might think to themselves, well, that is true, but perhaps the solution is to isolate ourselves and build our own communities and sort of defend ourselves from state predation. But watching your show and watching and reading some of your books, you're not quite au fait with that idea. You think we have to be a bit more muscular with what can be achieved.
Yes, and the reason is if we were Puritans in the 1600s and we were being persecuted, it was then possible to go to America. There was somewhere to go. But where are we going to go now? We're going to go to the moon. The tentacles of this woke, critical approach are everywhere, and we're going to have to take a stand somewhere, and we're going to have to counterattack somewhere. So basically, in the Reformation, the Reformers, when they were talking about resisting evil from the magistrate, they had 3 stages that they developed. One was to be a prophetic voice against the evil, to testify against it, preach against it, to be a bold witness. That was number 1. Number 2 was to flee, assuming there was somewhere to go. Jesus, and it's honorable, Jesus said, if you're persecuted in one city, flee to the next. So that's perfectly fine. And then the third one was to, as a last resort, take up defensive arms. You may never try to overthrow the existing authorities. We're not revolutionaries. But there comes a time when your back's against the wall and there's nowhere to go and they're going to come and take your wife and kids. You say, no, let me think about it. No,